This program is going to show you how to troubleshoot and correct some common errors in teach-pendant programs. So what I want to do is I'm going to run this program called House13. So I press my select button here, and that takes me to all the different teach-pendant programs that are on this particular controller and this teach-pendant, and I'm going to select House13. And so I go up to that, House13, press enter. This takes me to the edit screen of this program. Now if you look at this program, there's actually 10 lines, 1/10. So I'm on line 1 out of 10 lines in the program. We can actually only see 9 lines. So if I arrow down, you can kind of see here that line 10 is actually simply our end of the program, right? So it's counted as a line number there, but it's not actually doing anything. Line number 1 is a label. A label doesn't exactly do anything either. It's basically a entry point for the program. So if we come down to line 9, we can see that line 9 is a jump to label 1. So label 1 is the instruction up here on line 1. Now a lot of times the label won't be on line 1. That's just kind of a coincidence in this case, but line 1 contains the instruction label 1, and I've labeled that as start of the program because it's the beginning of the program. So what's going to happen, we're going to run through this program, which is going to draw out the map of this kind of house shape. You see the house shape going on over here? This program is simply going to draw out the edges of this little pentagram or little house shape here on the screen, and then it's so it's going to go through there, and it's going to get to line number 9 and jump back to line 1 and then just start all over again. So line 1 isn't really doing anything, so other than it's the entry point. So when you first start the program, it's just, there's nothing for it to do at all really. It just kind of executes and says, oh, this is a label, and moves on to line 2. So I'm going to start here at line 1, and I'm going to press forward. When I do that, I get an error. Well, let's read the error. Run request failed, already locked by other task. Alright, so this is a very common error that we get because we've switched the program that we want to run. I was running a different program, and now I want to run the program House13, and it's like, hey, I'm in the middle of running this other program, I don't want to do this. So what we have to do is abort any programs that are currently running. So we come down to our function key, press that, and we can, you see the very first option there, because it's used so often, is abort all. And so I can either press the number 1 or press the enter key. Either one will abort that program. I can press reset to clear that top of the screen. And now I can press shift forward again, and it runs through. It executed line 1 with no problems, but now I hit line 2 and I get another error. This error is called uninitialized data. The problem here is the fact that it's trying to go to position register number 5, and it doesn't know where that is. Okay, so if we come over to our data and we go to type, F1 for type, and choose position registers. Now I had already been here before, which is why it's on the screen, but in case it doesn't come up to that screen, that's how you get to the position register. And you see here, like, position register number 1 has an R, which means that it's been recorded, so it has that value. So if we press on position register number 1, if we press F4, we can see the X value, the Y value, the Z value, the yaw, pitch, and roll of that position register. So that those all are values, those are numbers, right? We can read those numbers. But if I come down to number 5, if I arrow down to number 5 and press F4, you see that it's uninitialized. It's all starred out. There's no actual numbers in there. So that's what they're saying here. Uninitialized data is like, okay, you said go to this point, but you never told me where that point truly is in space. Okay. So this is an error. So what we have to do is record this. Okay. Now I'm going to record this. So I'm going to say done here, and then I'm going to do a Shift F3, and now you see that it's recorded. If I press position, you can see the numbers for this location. Now I'm going to go back, press edit. Remember, edit at any time will just return you to your code. And you can see it's telling us now that I am currently at position number 5, which is just a home position. So I'm going to then press forward and move to the next point. Okay, I guess I need to hit reset to clear my error, and then press forward. And now I'm trying to go to point number 1, which is labeled swimming for some reason. Okay, so point number 1 should be this point down here. You see the orange dot down there on the screen of the one lower left corner of the pentagram, little help shape. So that's point number 1. I'm just going to rename this as lower left. Okay, and since I'm using the RoboGuide software, I can just type it in very easily. But that's point 1's lower left there. You can see it's orange down on the screen there. But the problem is that this, let's look over here. If we come over here and we select F5 now for position, we see that there's an X and a Y and a Z and you all pitch and roll and all that lovely numbers, but notice that the user frame is user frame 1. And that's what it's complaining about, is the user frame. So if I press Shift Chord, we see that my current user frame over here is user frame 9, not user frame 1, and that's why it's popping up this error. So if I punch in the number 1 here and hit enter, so now I've set my current user frame to 1, which is what this point is looking for, is user frame 1. So I'm just going to hit previous to close that. I'm going to arrow back over here to the line number, and I'm going to press Shift forward again and try to re-execute this. Okay, and I might have to hit the reset to reset that error. Oh, now it's telling me it doesn't like my tool frame. So again, let's look over here. We see that the position is user frame 1, and it's also tool frame 1. But if I press my Shift Chord, we see that my user frame is now 1 because I just changed it, but the tool frame is not 1, it's 8. So I need to change my tool frame to a 1 also. And now I can come back in here. I can hit the previous button to get out of the position, and then arrow back to line number 3 and press reset. So reset that error and press forward. And now you see that the robot is actually moving over to point 1. So it moved over to point 1, and then it actually went to point 4. Okay, and then it went to point 5, and it's currently at point 5. And now it's trying to go to point 6. Okay, so it's trying to go to point 6, which is highlighted by the little orange dot. That's where it wants to go, point 6. But it's given me an error message, position not reachable. Well, the problem here is the fact that point 6 is what's showing up with the orange dot. But you notice there's an offset here. So it's trying to go to point 6 plus this offset at position register 7. Well, I have no idea where that's at. I mean, I can come over to data and I could look at that position register 7 and see where that's trying to go. All right, and so it's trying to like add all these values of position register 7. Well, the thing is, I'm just going to remove that offset. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the program. I'm going to arrow over to the line offset, which you notice it puts me on offset PR7, but I'm going to go to choice here, and I'm going to choose choice number 1, no option, and now it just removed that offset. So now I'm going to go back here to line 6, and I'm going to press, before I do that, notice that the speed here is 10 seconds. So I'm saying it's going to take 10 seconds to go from where it's at, which is currently 0.5. Remember the at symbol there shows you it's currently at 0.5, and it's going to go to 0.6, and it's going to take 10 seconds to get there. So I'm going to go ahead and press forward. Might need to reset my error. Press forward, and you can see it. I was going to change the time of this because if you look at the screen there, you can see it moving, but it's taken 10 seconds to get there. So 10 seconds is a very long time sometimes, and so you can see it slowly moving over to 0.6. So it's moving at a rate that's going to take it 10 seconds to move between where it started, which in this case was 0.5, to where it's going, which is 0.6, which is the orange dot. So it's headed for the orange dot, but it hasn't quite got there yet. So I'll kind of rearrange that just a little bit so we can get maybe a slightly better view. Okay. All right, now I let go of the shift key so it actually stopped, so it hadn't quite got there. Now it went going to 0.7 and back to 0.1. And it got back to 0.5, and now it's saying 0.5 is not reachable. Well, remember when I recorded 0.5? If you go back to the beginning of this video, when I recorded 0.5, I was actually in user frame 8, no, user frame 9 and tool frame 8, something like that. And so when I recorded that position register, that position was tied to those frames. So if we come back over to our data and we look at position register 5, and we see, you see it says user frame F and user tool frame F, those frames are associated with the frame. When you record these numbers, it's for that frame, and when you change to a different frame, the numbers don't change, but the point in space actually changes, because the numbers don't change, but your reference, your origin to your frames does change. And so I recorded PR5 using user frame 5, or user frame 9 and tool frame 8. So now that I'm in user frame 1 and tool frame 1, this point is no longer reachable. The robot can't go there. I don't have, no idea where that is at. I mean, I do have I know exactly where it's at based on the numbers, but I would have to, where's my origin for my current user frame of 1 and tool frame of 1, and then figure out where in space this is at. But the robot's figured that out already and says that it can't get me there. All right. So if I come over to the program, I'm just going to, since I'm in the RoboGuide tool, I'm just going to kind of use some of the tools here to jog this guy around a little bit. Up here into space. So the idea of position register 5 is the fact that we just want to be above our thing, and so this is kind of a home position. So what I want to do actually here is for position register 5, I just want to kind of mark this as kind of a home safe spot. So this is like a safe area to start the program. Okay. And so now, so I just kind of moved the robot away from the surface out here in an area where it can't run into anything. And then I'm going to do a shift record, and I'm going to update this to new values to the current spot where I'm at. So now when I go back to my program and I run this program, you can see it running through the program there. And now remember, it's taken 10 seconds to get to 0.6. So I'm going to press hold, and I'm just going to come over here. 10 seconds is a really long time. I'm going to change it to 3.5 seconds. Okay. And so then I'm going to rerun this, but it's moving a lot faster than, so it's only going to take 3.5 seconds to get between those 2 points instead of 5.5 seconds, right? So 1001, 1002, and it's at there. Now the speed, notice actually my speed is actually also at 10%, so it, it was even taking longer than the 3.5 seconds because my speed was at 10% currently. So if I try to like speed the robot up a little bit, right, it would have to be at 100% for it to really take that time. All right, so, but you can kind of watch this robot go out there and just map those points. Okay, and again, when it gets to line 9, it's jumping back to line 1. But I just kind of wanted to show you that you can use this to touch up these points. All right. Now, speaking of touching up points, we can also edit just the position of a point. Let me rearrange this a little bit here. So I'm going to take 0.5, which is right up here. I'm going to take this point, and I'm going to come over here, and actually I'm going to change that point. So I'm going to change that point. The Y value is 140. I'm going to change this Y value to 200. Okay. And so you can see once I did that, that point dramatically increased up there. So it made the peak much higher. So when I run this program now, it's running. Now notice it started running from the line I was at, which was line 5, and so it's just running through here. Okay, and so we can edit those. We can edit the speed. We can edit the joint type. Any of those. We just when the teach minute's turned on, you can just click edit to get to the program, and you can edit any of these various your joint type. You can choose between linear, joint, and circular. You can change between a position register and a point, and then you can also label these points. Okay, so you can kind of come in here and say, well, let's see, label 0.5 is the top of the house. Okay, so you can actually come in and label these. You can then when you do that, I made it such a long label, it actually rolled it, the second part of it's down there. So notice this is still line 5. So here's the speed, so we can go to choice on our speed, and we can select the different options of velocities, or we can just change the number. So if you just come over to the number and you just want to make it, instead of 2,000 millimeters per second, make it 980 millimeters per second. You can just type in that number and apply it, and then you can run the program. Now I'm going to come up here and start on line 3 and press forward. Now when you do this, you get a little message that's saying, hey, I was down on line 6, and then you moved me and you're telling me to start at line 3. Well, the problem is that if I say yes here, it's going to go to whatever line line 3 was, which I think was point number 1. Yeah, point number 1. So it's going to go to point number 1. That's its next movement. But it's doing that from up here almost at point number 5. And the question becomes, is there an obstacle between where the arm is now and where I'm going to go, which is point number 1 in this case? And so it's asking you, are you sure you want to do this? Because there may be an obstacle and you may run into that obstacle. And so you need to make sure that it's a safe movement. If not, you can maybe just jog the robot and, you know, come over here and just do like a +Z or whatever and move the robot away from any obstacles so it has a clear path to where you want to go. And then you can come in here and say, yes, that's fine, and then press shift forward again, and it will continue from that point. Okay? So anytime when you're trying to go back and start the program from another point or jump ahead and, you know, and just start the program from somewhere where you not where you left off at, you'll see that message. So make sure before you say yes there, just make sure that you have the robot in a safe spot so that it's not going to run into anything when it's trying to go to the next position that it's being instructed to go to. Alright, so this was just some common issues that you run into when you're trying to run your program or edit. You know, you got to make changes on your program and stuff. And one of the big things to remember is look up at the error message that shows up here at the top. You see, I just let go of the shift key, so the robot stopped, and it's telling me why it stopped, because I just let go of the shift key. So, and I'm in teach mode. So just make sure that you read the top of your teach pendant screen and read those error messages. Remember, you can also go to menu, come down to alarm, and select your alarm type to be alarms, and go to the history, and you can read those error messages that you were running into. So you can come back here and you can see the various error messages and review those.